You don't like that?
No.
Okay, that you don't have to use it. Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yep, 5:30.
Unmute.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the regular city council meeting until July 27th, 2020 to order. Welcome, everyone. I would now ask the city clerk to call the roll.
Did you unmute us?
Yep.
Yeah, it's unmuted. Yep, it's unmuted.
I see it connecting to audio in the upper right.
Darcy Long Curtis,
Present.
Kim McLaughlin,
Yes, I'm here.
Rod Runyon,
Here.
Linda Miller,
Here.
Scott Randall,
Here.
and Mayor Richard Mays.
Present. Thank you. I would now ask Councilor Linda Miller to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I ask all of you to join me. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 4 is approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda. Second.
It's been moved by Councilor McLaughlin, seconded by Councilor Runyon to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 5 is audience.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
Mayor Lawrence, can we get everyone to mute? We're having some reverb.
Lawrence.
Wrong mayor.
Who is that speaking?
I said it.
Okay. Everything okay now?
There's one phone. No, it's got mute on it. It did it, now it's on. 980-1446, you need to mute your phone. And Dave Anderson needs to mute.
It actually is muted. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, that's David. Okay. Audience participation is next. During this portion of the meeting, anyone may speak on any subject which does not later appear on the agenda. Up to 5 minutes per person will be allowed. If a response by the city is requested, the speaker will be referred to the city manager for further action. The issue may appear on a future meeting agenda for city council consideration. Is there anyone that would like to address the council for up to 5 minutes? Seeing no one, we'll proceed to item 6 on the agenda, which is the city report. Ms. Kruger.
Thank you, Mayor Mays. This evening, we're experimenting with the council chamber system that we're having installed. So please forgive me if you think I'm not looking at you. If I was on my Zoom, I would be looking straight at you. But if I want to look at you, I have to look at the the wall camera, and then I can't look at you on the screen or my agenda. So it's a little bit goofy, but I'm not ignoring you. You already have my report from last week. So the only thing I wanted to let you know is we have confirmed that August 24th will be our special city council meeting for the purpose of hearing the legacy land use appeal. And City Attorney Diana McDougall is not on the meeting tonight. So if you have any specific questions for her, you can let me know and I'll relay those to her. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Julie, did you say that the date is yet to be set or has been set for the appeal?
Has been set for August 24th.
24th.
5:30?
Yes.
And that will be a Zoom meeting as well?
Will be what?
Zoom.
A
Oh,
Zoom.
Yes, Counselor.
Any other questions for the city manager? Okay, I take it we have no city attorney's report. So we'll proceed with city council reports. We'll start with Councilor Long Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since the last council meeting, I've continued to participate in the Unified Command Health and Human Services Subcommittee, working on housing. We have basically everything is kind of going along smoothly at this point, but we have some updates. Health Department is housing people out at Shiloh who have either tested positive for COVID-19 or who are awaiting test results. And people who have no way to isolate or quarantine at home have the ability to do so out there. And the health department has just last week submitted a request to the state under the CARES funds to have that reimbursed for them, because right now it's coming all out of pocket in advance, which is quite the burden on their budget, as you might imagine. I'm also continuing to attend the Oregon statewide COVID-19 homeless populations task force. We're alternating every other week with just a straight task force update meeting, and then every other week would be a specialized meeting with the state asking us for input on things that they're working on, whether that's new regulations or things that they are, trying to figure out around the homeless issue. Because of that going to every week, I've had to switch to listening to the League of Oregon Cities calls after the fact, but they do post those on the website. So I've been able to maintain that as well. I did meet with the city manager, as she noted in one of her reports, as well as several other people in the community, trying to figure out what we're going to do because of COVID-19. Not only do we have a warming shelter problem, but now with the heat, we have a lack of a cooling shelter issue. And we also have, as you know, some community complaints about things getting worse down around the area of St. Vincent de Paul and the Mill Creek area. So we are looking at ways that we might mitigate some of the garbage that's being generated with the meals being served to go now. That's creating a lot more garbage, and people aren't always consuming them outside right at St. Vincent de Paul, where there are numerous garbage cans and dumpsters. So we're looking into possibilities on how that can be handled. And I won't go into details so we figure out if that's going to happen or not. And I attended a Q-Life meeting. We accepted the bid for Gorge Network to do an expansion of our downtown Liberty project. And that's our first step into bringing broadband to homes up toward the high school, but we've got to extend from City Hall up toward the high school before they can do that at the home portion. I also attended the MCED Transportation meeting, and we continue to discuss our big topic, which is the regional plan development. And they're putting a lot of effort into that on the staff end, and it continues to proceed. We expect by next spring, we'll have the information gathering and be looking at phase 2. They did note that they have hired additional drivers and an additional dispatch person who's bilingual, and they're also expecting the delivery of 2 more buses. They're doing some swap outs and then an additional bus because they are adding the second fixed route, which will be on the east side. And we discussed what the possible stops are and on the east side, and then how it would connect with the existing fixed route. And finally, I also attended urban renewal with a couple of the other council members. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Miller.
On the 20th of July, I had a Granada Theater tour. I wanted it before the urban renewal meeting. On the 21st, I attended the urban renewal meeting, and we have a final of the DDA for the Granada Theater. The building will be deeded to Chuck and Deborah Gomez. Excuse me. And on the 25th, I met with the mayor and a potential candidate for city council. And if you know anyone who is interested in running for city council, please give them the information to contact Izetta, the city clerk, for an application. We really need to have, and especially younger people, getting involved in city council and government issues. That's my report.
Thank you. Councilor McLaughlin.
I attended Zoom Airport Commission meeting. We were talking about developing new hangar space. That continues to be a focus. Also on the tarmac improvement on the front of the terminal, that's moving forward. And the filtering system to add to the tanks that were applied or that were installed above ground at the airport. Fuel sales for the month of June was exceptionally high at 23,000 gallons, which is the highest. So the airport is moving along. Urban renewal, the Granada grant with the HVAC system, congratulations on securing that to get the Granada brought up to levels where it's environmentally, where you can go and see a film or do whatever activity in the Granada. So congratulations. And again, the title was transferred from urban renewal to the Granada. I did have a wonderful meeting with city manager to discuss items with concerning the city, and that's my report.
Thank you. Councilor Randall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Wednesday, July 22nd, the Historic Landmarks Commission considered a request to restore and enhance the exterior of the historic Block Miller and Company building, commonly known as the ZF Movie Store, or just the enhancements include adding windows, doors, and exterior paint. The request was approved with conditions. Also, the commission will be holding a special hearing on August 5th to consider a few applications that arrived last night.
Thank you. Councilor Runyon.
On July 23rd, I also, along with Darcy, attended the Q-Live meeting through Google Apps or something, one of those programs. And you may have mentioned it, Darcy, but I didn't hear it. Did you talk about the Water's Edge in your report?
I did not. I tried to leave something for you, Rod.
Okay.
A little scrap.
I didn't want to repeat anything, but they got the permission from the Union Pacific Railroad to continue the length it'll take the internet tie to the Water's Edge. And once that's all complete, which is still months and months away, it's greatly going to improve medical service in our community. They will be able to tie into so many things, and it'll be a money saver too as well for Water's Edge. So lots of developments to come in on that particular area.
That's it?
That's it.
Thank you, Councilor.
Everything else was secret.
As far as the mayor's report goes, on the 13th and the 20th, I participated in two conference calls with the local committee that's put together to deal with the Gorge Commission, the urban growth boundary. And one of those discussions was with the 4 representatives from the Department of Land Conservation and Development, which was I thought very beneficial for all concerned. The Gorge Commission will be meeting next month at least twice to review once more the plan amendments that they have in mind, and I think we certainly have been kept apprised of that. On the 14th, I had a conversation with Nadine McCrindle of the American Red Cross. The Dalles is in the same region as a lot of Central Oregon. She's from Bend, and she's looking for volunteers to serve on the Red Cross from the Dalles. And I invited her to participate with me on KODL Coffee Break Show on the 22nd. So her and I both appeared on KODL Coffee Break. And she talked about, on the radio, she talked about their need for Red Cross volunteers. I joined 3 of you who already have mentioned the urban renewal meeting on the 21st. Our city manager alluded to a meeting that we had with the attorneys, sort of a 6-month review, which was very productive on the 20th. Pursuant to what Councilor Long Curtis had brought up about the neighborhood over by the shelter and the Chamber of Commerce over there. I went over there and toured the area, ran into a neighbor called Ryan Beach, who lives at 418 West Second Place, and I had a nice discussion and meeting with him. And on the 24th, I attended the community outreach team meeting, and I also had an additional meeting with a potential city council candidate. That concludes my report. Any questions or comments on anything, any reports? Okay. Item 9 is the consent agenda. Items of a routine and non-controversial nature are placed on the consent agenda to allow the city council to spend its time and energy on the important items and issues. Any council may request an item be pulled from the consent agenda and be considered separately. Items pulled from the consent agenda will be placed on the agenda at the end of action items section. We have 3 items on the consent agenda. We have the approval of the July 13th council meeting minutes. We have authorization to declare public works property as surplus. And we also have a resolution concurring with my appointment of Corliss Marsh to serve on the library board. Do I hear a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll move to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilor McLaughlin and seconded by Councilor Miller to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 9A, or excuse me, 10A is an agreement with Worldwide Structures, which is an enterprise zone abatement. I believe Mr. Matthew Cleaves is joining us to present the staff report. There he is. Are you checking your children? Is that why you turned your head?
Yeah, she's learned how to open doors. She's like the velociraptors from Jurassic Park. She can just get everywhere now. It's a little, she's just gonna pop up behind me at some point, I think.
Okay.
Yes, but I'm all set. Thank you very much, Mayor Mays. Good afternoon, Council. As Mayor Mays alluded to, before you is an application for an extended enterprise zone abatement agreement under the Wasco County Joint Enterprise Zone. This is for an extended agreement, which would grant the applicant an additional 2 years on top of the standard or 3-year enterprise zone agreement, which would ultimately give the applicant a total of 5 years. In my memo and in the additional documents included in your packet, I've outlined some of the state requirements to be eligible for both the standard and extended agreement, as well as the local component for the 4th and 5th year. And a lot of these requirements, really focus in on job creation, wage and compensation, as well as various other items such as the first source hiring agreement and others. The application does include the number of jobs that are intended to be created, as well as the level of investment and a short description of the applicant's intended activities. And I do believe a quick check, we have several representatives from the company who can answer any specific questions that you may have. Your zone managers, who are both myself and Carrie Pipinich with MCED, along with Jill Amory, the county assessor, met with the company to review the dynamics of an enterprise zone agreement and how it works and the reporting requirements each year, et cetera, et cetera. And in essence, to grant these additional years for an extended agreement, we need to have the zone sponsors, namely the county, the Port of the Dalles, and the City of the Dalles, vote to approve the extension. I've taken this information to the County Commission as well as the Port Commission, where it both passed unanimously. And I did want to stress 2 things, and that this agreement or this approval tonight is only for the enterprise zone application itself. It does not grant the applicant any land use or building code approvals. And when I took it to the Port Commission the other night, I did notice that there was one error where I left the Port of the Dalles out of the list of entities needed to approve any of the sweat equity proposals that they have an option to put forth. I've made that change moving forward. And as I said, I believe there's some representatives here from the company should you have specific questions, but that's kind of an overview of what's before you this evening, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Does anyone from Worldwide have any brief comments they'd like to make?
Yeah, Craig Novak here. I'd like to thank the council for hearing this application tonight. And I feel that we will become very good stewards of job creation there in your community. And we're excited to become part of that environment. And we believe with our product that we are going to be building affordable, high energy efficient buildings. There may be ample opportunities in your city alone for affordable housing, possibly schools. So we really are very happy to locate there in the Dalles.
Thank you, Mr. Novak. Does any city councilor have a question or a comment on the proposal?
That was answered by what is the product that they are constructing? And Mr. Novak answered that, so second paragraph, got it.
Councilor Long Curtis.
Yeah, just a couple of real basic questions for Matthew. I just wanted to confirm that, well, maybe I just want to ask, typically when people apply for this, do they apply for just the first year and then come back later for the fourth and fifth? Or is it very typical to go ahead and apply for all 5 years of this right up front?
In my experience, if a company can hit the benchmarks to be eligible for the extended abatement, they usually come and ask for the full amount. So if they, in particular, can hit those wage and compensation thresholds, they usually come in and ask for the full 5 years.
Okay, great. And so then would it be correct to assume that if for some unforeseen reason they can't successfully complete the initial 3 years, that they become ineligible for the fourth and fifth year, even if we approve it right now?
Correct. If they miss those minimum requirements, job creation, wage and compensation, they would be ineligible for the abatement. And it's one of the aspects why we require yearly reporting.
Okay, so there's really no downside in approving the whole 5 years right now.
Not to my knowledge. I mean, the company coming in, we know up front what they're looking for and we can plan accordingly.
Right, helps them make their plans too for cash flow. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just to clarify, Ben, as well as before, we're not approving 5 years, we're approving elements of the contract. That's an element.
If I can ask Chuck.
They have to complete 3 years in order to get the opportunity for next year.
I apologize. Chuck, could you mute your phone, please?
Yes.
Councilor Runyon, could you re-ask your question? I couldn't quite hear you.
I was just trying to clarify what Darcy was asking there. We're in effect not really voting to approve a 5-year contract. We're approving the elements of a contract that could go 5 years. It's really a 3-year checkpoint before those other 2 years come into play. Once those are approved, then it continues on. We don't have to come back to go over it again. Does that make sense?
Matthew, there you go.
Yes, that makes sense to me. Yeah.
All right, it's fine.
Any other questions? I have a couple if nobody else does. Yeah, Councilor Miller.
The employment, local as much as possible?
So one of the requirements.
Sorry,
if I can just briefly, Craig, one of the requirements that an enterprise zone applicant has is to enter into a first source hiring agreement, which helps with disadvantaged populations. But go ahead, and Craig and Chuck, with your local.
We are a Native American service disabled veteran owned business. So we are very much interested in having those communities represented in our company and want to support those additionally.
Any other questions?
No.
Pursuant to Councilor Miller's question, I would anticipate that your company would be hiring not only their employees that Worldwide would actually sign their paychecks, but also independent contractors. Is my assumption correct?
Could you repeat that, please?
You anticipate hiring independent contractors in addition to regular employees who have their paycheck signed by Worldwide.
We actually have a model based on a product that I've represented for some years, where we have a training center that we will train contractors that are building our buildings remotely. And all our factory employees will be packaging these structures. Also, let's say similar to an IKEA packaged product. So it's a flat pack building that is assembled on site. So all our work done in the Dalles would be bringing product together from regional suppliers, re-kitting everything at the factory, and adding some value with we'll have our own truss division and a couple other components that we'll manufacture on site. So we don't use independent contractors at our facility at all. We only train them for remote use.
And what do you anticipate as far as the area you'll be serving? Obviously the Dalles, do you expect to go outside the Dalles, and if so, to what extent?
We are going to be a regional provider for the Northwest. We're a member of the American Indian Housing Association of the Northwest, and we've been talking with tribes for the last 4 years of their needs and desires, from the Quinault Nation on the Olympic Peninsula all the way up to the Spokane tribe and Colville. So we're very much a Northwest centric company, and all our suppliers, mostly from Oregon. A couple products come out of California because we don't have the means up in Oregon yet for that manufacturing. But no, we're an entire West Coast business-based model, and hopefully to expand beyond that point. But our initial foray is to have this factory and serve the Northwest region from Montana all the way down to San Diego County.
Thank you. Councilor McLaughlin?
Why did you choose the Dalles?
We like the concentration in the region to serve these Native American tribes because they have the highest demand. For them, there's job creation as well. And our heart lies in providing the high energy efficient buildings that people don't have to spend their paychecks trying to heat or cool these structures. The structure is an R47 wall. If anybody's familiar with construction, that's 3 times the code average. We're basically a Yeti cooler of housing. So you can imagine a non-wind affected, highly insulated structure that costs very little to heat, and also in the summertime costs very little to cool. So it serves people that have very limited income in a great manner that gives longevity to the houses are very proven, long-lasting buildings, as well as affordable houses to stay in and be comfortable in without spending tons and tons of money like somebody in a single wide mobile home would.
So thank you.
Any other questions for the representatives of Worldwide or Matthews? Okay, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll move to approve resolution 20-018, approving an enterprise zone tax abatement agreement between the sponsors of the Wasco County Joint Enterprise Zone and Worldwide Structures Property Company, LLC.
Second motion.
It's been moved by Councilor Miller and seconded by Councilor Randall to approve the resolution. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you guys very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 10B is a resolution supporting the Fair Housing Act of 1988. Is our Director of Community Development going to be giving the staff report?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Evening, Mayor, members of council. We have before you a resolution that's associated with our new Community Development Block Grant Home Repair Program. This is one of the resolutions that's required to receive the federal funds. It's a similar resolution that the City Council adopted in 2013. Again, supporting fair housing in the community, as well as implementing a fair housing program that consists of a number of notices, public service announcements, and et cetera. So again, this is one of the requirements, as some of the other resolutions we've had. So that concludes the staff report. If there's any questions or comments.
Questions of Mr. Harris?
None.
No. Steve, is this going to take, I know it's in section 1, it talks about assisting people who with discrimination issues. Would this take any special training of the staff?
Oh, Mayor, we've gone through some training with our current program that we're phasing out at this time. This program, the way we have it structured, is our partner, the Columbia Cascade Housing Corporation. They're actually doing most of the heavy lifting on this. They are the program managers. So they will be assisting us and providing us training. But again, this is something that we have done in the past. You may have seen some of the posters and some of the other materials that we have at City Hall. So, but no formalized special training will be necessary.
Thank you. Any other questions? Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make, sorry.
Go ahead.
Councilor Long Curtis, go ahead.
Sorry, it's a little awkward with the gap there. I'll move to adopt resolution number 20-019, a resolution supporting the Fair Housing Amendments Act of 1988 and implementation of a fair housing program.
And I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilor Long Curtis and seconded by Councilor McLaughlin to approve the resolution. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 11 is a discussion regarding the Federal Street Public Plaza concept design. Julie, who'll be, will this be Mr. Harris as well?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Harris?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of Council. I have our consultant project manager, Colin MacArthur, is here this evening. He's at the firm Cameron McCarthy. And Colin is going to be giving a presentation on the exhibits that you have in your packet. So I'm just going to give a little background information and then I guess pass the mic to Colin. You may remember last year we had the downtown visiting exercise workshops, and the need or the desire to have a downtown public gathering place was one of the priorities that came out of that visioning workshop. So we took those areas that were identified as high priorities out of the visioning workshop. And again, one of those was this downtown meeting plaza. And so we retained Colin's firm to develop a conceptual design of this public plaza. And we've been working with Colin's firm since the beginning of the calendar year. Last February, we conducted 2 design charrettes or workshops. One was inside the Tony's department store building proper. The second workshop was held at the Civic Auditorium. And the purpose of those workshops was to, one, present the idea of this downtown plaza, and begin to speak on certain amenities of what people would like to see to be developed at the plaza, landscaping, seating areas, special pavement treatments, lighting, etc. And so we took those ideas and those comments from those 2 design workshops in February. And again, working with Colin's firm, we've gone through a couple iterations of a concept design. And that's before you this evening. We also have some construction cost estimates. We provided that. And also we began to look at some alternative paving materials since I think the most substantial cost of this would be paving, surface treatments. So we asked Collins firm to look at some various alternatives, some cost-saving measures. We then reviewed those internally at the planning department and the public works department. And I've included a memo from our city engineer from a public works maintenance standpoint, what their preferences would be. And so we have that for you as well. And so I've asked Colin to come present this. And what we're looking for this evening, one is there one interest on the part of the city council to proceed with this project? The city, as well as the agency, has approved some funding for this year to continue this process. So we want to make sure this is still a priority with the council. And then we will be going to the agency board here in the near future as well. And then the second thing, we'd ask for some direction on just the basic amenities that are part of the design concept to date. And then if you'd also be able to give us some direction on the paving or the paving materials, if you want us to look at these various alternatives and again, provide with some cost savings on that as well. So again, one, is this still a priority of the council? Two, looking for some direction on the various amenities of this design concept. And then the third would be taking a look, and if you could give us some direction on the paving materials themselves, the various alternatives, because they are expensive. So with that, I'd like to ask Colin if you could begin your presentation, and it's going to be doing the share screen option with the program, which allows you and the folks, the audience, to take a look at these conceptual renderings. So, Colin?
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I trust everybody can hear me okay. I am presenting from my office in Eugene. Again, I'm Colin MacArthur. I'm a principal and a planner with Cameron McCarthy. And we have offices in Eugene and Portland. And I will start by sharing my screen and the work plot product that concluded this planning and design effort. So I'm sharing my screen now. Can I get a thumbs up from somebody that you can see? Okay, good. That's working. Okay, some of the impetus for this project, Steve covered it. My firm has been fortunate to work in the area now for a few years. Our initial involvement was with the Northern Wasco County Park and Rec District. We developed the district's first comprehensive park system master plan. That finally made its way through Planning Commission last month, and we think it'll be headed to council here for adoption in the next month or so. We did a ton of public involvement as part of that project, stakeholder meetings, focus groups, an online survey. And one of the themes that emerged from that project was an interest or desire in more public space, social space, gathering space, flexible space, green space in the downtown area. And at that point, we did actually have, we're thinking about the JCPenney parking lot as a potential site. That's still, there's still some interest there. We also recognize that this portion of Federal Street had potential to be a social gathering urban plaza space. Following that, as Steve mentioned, we worked on the downtown visioning project, and that reinforced an interest or desire from the community for more public space, plaza space downtown. And then following that, we were retained by Steve and Public Works to do this conceptual design and planning process, for which the product I'm gonna show you tonight. And it was about a 3-month process. We had stakeholder meetings. We did an open house, design charrette type exercise to generate some ideas, developed 2 concepts, refined those into 1 concept, worked with city staff through final changes to that concept, and that is what you see before you here today. Some of the goals for this this concept, one, I guess we've talked about desire or interest in a gathering space, a social space. We're aware that this street and segments of other streets get used during the Cherry Festival and other major events in the Dalles, and so to design a space that could better accommodate those functions and be programmed for those functions. There is a desire to improve connectivity, particularly pedestrian connectivity between 2nd Street and 1st Street. We're aware of the improvements that the city has been planning along 1st Street, and this project builds upon that to provide connections, pedestrian connections on really both the north and south sides of Federal Street. A desire to, again, I think I mentioned this before, create a flexible space, an adaptable space, a space that could be programmed, and a space that is multi-purpose, but also easy to maintain. We talked about interest in more green space downtown. There are the tree planters, some businesses have planters. There is Lewis and Clark Park. Other than that, there's not a lot of green in the downtown core. So some additional shade trees, landscaping. We look for ways to incorporate that into this concept. We thought there was an opportunity to recapture some of the vehicular space that was formerly used by what is now the Veterans Services Building. I believe it was a former Amtrak or Train Depot, if I'm not mistaken, but it has a nice brick plaza with a round planter out in front of it, and we think there's an opportunity to expand that and recapture some space for the pedestrian that had previously been allocated to drop off or vehicular movements. And then in order to make this space interesting and attractive to families and for people to want to be, especially during the summer, during hot days when the Dalles gets hit with 100-degree weather, we did introduce a play element, a splash pad element that we've designed in similar communities and implemented in similar communities around the space. It would be activated be able to be accessed or activated during the summer. Small jets that come out of the concrete that spray water at various intervals, but there isn't really anything like this in the Dalles. We see this element in many other communities, and so we think that there is a place for it in this space, and have located that on the north side of the plaza. So this is basically this is the basic concept. The main change we're doing is replacing the surfacing, and I'll talk more about surfacing. Our desire was to introduce a more comfortable surface to walk on and sit on and really to be in, as opposed to a sea of asphalt and striping. So our original proposal included the use of precast concrete pavers. I'll talk through some alternatives. We also broke up the large expanse of paving patterns with some rectangular planters that could be lawn, or could be like a wildflower mix. And then we are introducing a few street trees, approximately 5 trees in those planters, and 2 smaller trees in planters outside the Veteran Services Building. In addition to that, we've got some seating along the south side, and we do like the use of natural elements when we design seating. So some sort of wood material that is treated and able to withstand harsh climate. We've been using juniper a lot in installations, something like that, to create a large seating pad. And then I mentioned the splash pad that would be across on the other side. I've got some perspective views that do a little bit better job of displaying the design. I'll try to switch to those. Before I move to that, we did overlay our design on the city's utilities, just to make sure that we were avoiding any major conflicts or building structures that would make it difficult for the city to maintain those utilities. And we think the design works pretty well. Blue lines are water lines. The green is your storm sewer. And then we do have some gas power running down the alley. There's a catch basin that we think we can use as part of the design. And then don't see any major conflicts with utilities, and we have showed this to Public Works, and they confirmed that the design does work for their purposes. This is a 3D axonometric view looking down. You can start to see people using the natural wood seating and the trees popping up, and then the expanded space around the Veteran Services Building. Another perspective, looking the other way, we're looking more north. From this view, this is looking directly at it towards First Street. And the concept here is that access would be controlled by bollards, movable bollards. Those bollards could be removed for emergency vehicle access, for snow removal, or if the street were to just be open. And this design does not preclude the street from being open during various times of the year, say the winter, if it's not being used. This design does convert it to one way going towards the alley and towards First Street. But we did verify that the sizing meets the needs of emergency vehicles and other access considerations. Looking closer at just some of the landscape panels, trees, we start to get a sense of the scale with the people introduced and a large seating pad. And this, the space is designed to be adaptable and flexible. So you can also imagine this when there are tents or like cars on display or food carts that could also occupy and be programmed into the space. Looking closer at the plaza area behind or next to the Veteran Services Building, again, we're building upon what's there and expanding it and adding some outdoor seating, planters, and more of that rich brick paving that is already in existence there. And then you can also see we are proposing some expanded sidewalk connections and ramps that connect to the sidewalks, the planned sidewalks on First Street. Another shot closer in, looking at the plaza. These white dots would be plaza and the splash pad. These white dots would be the jets that provide splash play. And then finally, our cost estimate. I did mention that our initial design looked at a more expensive surfacing material, and that is precast concrete unit pavers. Steve and Public Works asked us to look at some alternative materials. That work is in your memo, and then I reviewed Public Works's addition and to that, and we do agree with them. If we're not going to use precast concrete pavers, then the preferred alternative for us and for the design, for maintaining the design, would be textured or textured and colored concrete, which is I think what Public Works is also recommending. I did calculate some savings if we were to, just stay with asphalt and redo the surface in asphalt. There would be about 150,000 in savings, but that doesn't really change much from what is already there. It's not a very significant intervention, so we would not recommend that as a long-term solution. Approximately 52% of the overall cost is in the paving materials itself, and that does include the surfacing for the street, some additional curbs, some additional sidewalk, and then the brick paving. If we went with just regular concrete, as opposed to pavers, we'd see about 90,000 in savings. And if we went to colored or textured concrete, we think we could see about 35,000 in savings. So it'd be more about a $400,000 and $410,000 project. I just want to point out that this estimate is very conservative because we are at a very early stage. We're at conceptual design. So not only does it include construction costs and assume public bidding and prevailing wage rates to construct it, it also accounts for design fees, administration fees, and then any permits that would be required of the project, as well as there being a 10% contingency. So typically we'd see some of those costs drop away or get moved to other things as the project progresses. But because we're at a very, very early stage, we do try to be conservative in these estimates so that our clients and cities do have enough budget to do the project how it was envisioned or originally planned. I'll move back to the beginning and take any other questions, but we do think this is a good design, and we think it does meet the goals that we set upon to achieve, to provide a flexible space, adaptable space for social gatherings, and to introduce some new elements, new urban elements and green space in the downtown. So with that, Steve, let me know if I missed anything that you want me to cover, but I'd be happy to take any questions from the mayor or the councilors.
Thank you, Colin. And if I just may add, Mayor, that we haven't had an opportunity yet to take a close look at annual operations and maintenance costs of this design. So that's part of the fleshing out process when we look at the various alternatives and materials and the life cycle costs. And so that'll come later. We've also looked at how the project could be constructed in phases. For instance, it may be possible to have the paving surface and some of the underground utilities in the first phase, and then later come in and do some of the plantings, the landscaping perhaps. And the other element, the design element that does have a cost to it, is the splash pad little design feature, because that will require ongoing operations, maintenance, the water, et cetera. So again, we're not at the point in the process where we've been to start to have a good idea what annual operations and maintenance costs would be, or who would pay for those. But again, if there is support for this design or a similar design, then those items would be fleshed out as well as we continue with this process. And those are my remarks.
Thank you, Steve. Anybody that have any comment? I know I have several comments, but I'd like to get the council to weigh in first. Councilor Runyon.
I recall in the visioning conversations about having at least 2 covered areas for like a picnic table type setting for additional people, something like that, or are we so early in the process, or is that something the city could do later on? But that was important. I know at one time, the Veteran Service Office, we had a picnic table out on the patio by the VSO, and it was used a lot by employees in the block. So eventually I'd like to see some kind of a small covering, get out from the sun with all this cement, where people could sit, enjoy their lunch or whatever during the day. That was one thing. And the other, right now the Veteran Service Office is responsible for allowing the public to use the restrooms within the building with no outside access. Is that something that's been discussed about public restrooms in this newly conceived area?
No, I was not aware, or had not been previously aware of the use of the Veteran Services Building as public restrooms, and that's not something we contemplated in this design. these types of facilities, urban, small, we don't usually design in restrooms or add restrooms as part of a project like that. We would need to be at like a neighborhood park or community park scale, several acres, and multiple facilities where we would start needing to introduce restrooms. At the same time, this is an area where if there are events and festivals happening, I could see them bringing in portable restrooms and staging them somewhere. So, I'm sorry that the restroom part and relationship to the veteran services has not come up. Back to your first question, the shade picnic tables, those are great suggestions. Our budget does include an allowance for site furnishings, and I've got some planters and some bike racks, the benches you see here, bollards, litter recycling stations. But yeah, we could definitely introduce picnic tables with shade, or I can think of some parks we've done in Bend that have larger tables with shade like integrated with the table. So there are products out there, and we could even go as far as doing small shelters. But the idea is that the site furnishings evolves as the design progresses.
Well, I brought those things up because I just know as soon as these drawings and whatnot hit the public, those are the questions that are going to be asked. And so we need to be ready, at least on the city end, on how we're going to handle that. On the drawing where the Veteran Service Office building is sitting and the patio in the corner area, the rounded corner.
I've got
there is a flagpole there, just so you know, if that enters into any of your decisions.
Okay.
There's a flagpole right in between where those chairs are sitting. In between the two.
Flagpole.
Yeah. American flag, POW flag.
Okay, we'll add that to our model. We probably just didn't pick it up when we were building the model.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? Councilor Curtis, I can't see you, so if you have any questions or comments, you're going to have to just yell it out.
I do. I was hoping to let a few other counselors go first.
Okay. Anybody else besides me? I may have missed something, Colin, but what's the significance of those yellow circles with the numbers?
Yeah, sorry. These are, I should have explained that. These are just keynotes. So if you follow the one, it may be, I don't know how big your screen is, so you may not be able to see, but they are tied to a legend. So the 1 refers to a splash pad, the 2 refers to planters, 3 seating, and so on.
Okay.
So they're just a way to label the plan, but they're not actually structures that would be on the ground.
Well, I think you guys did a great job on this.
Thank you.
My initial reaction, my attitude is if we're going to do it, let's do it right. I'm not really interested in phasing it for any reason. I just think that could be some problems. I like the fact that it seems to be attractive. I really like the fact that it seems to be low maintenance. I like the rationale about the pavers as submitted by our city engineer. I hope we go through and go through with that recommendation with the pavers, with the concrete. And I like the idea of a splash pad. I was wondering, would that add a cost to the, to what extent does it add cost to the maintenance? Which I like to see us be, as minimal as possible, the splash pad.
Yeah, we'd have to do a little more work on that as part of the next phase to figure out the sort of the ongoing maintenance cost. Once you get it in, there is a little cost to maintain, and there's cost to winterize it and shut it down over the year, and then there's the cost of the water that you use on a regular basis. I don't have that number off the top of my head just because we haven't actually picked all the fixtures and exactly what's going to go in there. And we're really at this point, we're testing whether there's support for that element as part of this concept. But it sounds like we hope that there is, and we can definitely help the city as we've helped other cities sort of work through those issues and come up with a design that is reasonable and won't overburden your operations and maintenance.
Okay, thank you. Finally, I like the cover idea that Councilor Runyon brought up. I bet I don't see any really need or have any real desire to see any restrooms on that, at least on that part of it. So I just, again, my compliments I thought you guys did a great job with this, especially with this initial plan. I'm very excited.
Thank you.
Councilor Miller.
I know it's early, but I like the suggestion from the city engineer and Public Works about stamp colored concrete. I've seen that done, and I think it's a good route to go.
Yeah, I think we included some images in our memo that's in your packet of some really interesting and cool paving patterns using colored and textured concrete.
Councilor McLaughlin.
After reviewing this, I'm in favor of this project. I am opposed to the asphalt concept. I've seen it applied. So stamped concrete or pavers would be my preference. Cycle Oregon came to our community several years ago, and they're looking for possibilities of having a site at the end of the trail that comes through the gorge that's being developed. That might be a potential place to get some grant monies, and working with Cycle Oregon, I think that's the group, and there might be some potential there. I think the design looks great. What is the proposed time period for this? How long to construct?
We could construct it in a summer or a matter of months. I haven't figured out the exact construction timeline. So yeah, I'm hesitant to give a duration of weeks, but this is a relatively small project. I think it could be done in a month or a few months. I think I'll let Steve speak to the sort of the sequence and timing of grant funding and when everything might come together for the overall timeline.
My only other consideration here is we have parking on the backside, but there would sure be nice to have additional parking either adjacent or somehow to expand that. And I'm also thinking of the possibility of like a farmer's market or something where it's a community market, and maybe having some around the peripheral side of the project where you have some booths. And I don't know if that's portable or if it could be constructed and included. I don't know. That's just a thought. It would sure be nice to have it as a community marketplace as well.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, did you have any comments that Colin just alluded to regarding the sequencing or anything like that?
Well, Mayor, when we first started discussing this, we were looking at ideally this could maybe start in the spring of next year. And I don't know, maybe this is something that Don Warren has an answer to, but if you may remember several months ago, there was discussion about the September 2021 event with the Wall Dogs.
Yes.
Coming in town. And yes. I thought that would have been an excellent completion date for this plaza, try to coordinate it with that activity. Again, sometime, I guess it was September 2021. So, that was my own personal schedule that I thought was attainable.
Mr. Mayor.
I think that's an outstanding goal myself. Councilor Lon Curtis, did you have any questions or comments?
I do. So around the sequencing, I guess what I would like to say is I think that our timing may be a little bit off at this point. When we originally came up with this design and concept, things were of course quite a bit different. That was pre-COVID-19, people needing, to do different things socially. I mean, the whole purpose of this is social gatherings. And right now, you know, we're all hoping that we go back to quote unquote normal, but we may have to look at a new normal, and none of us knows yet what that is. We also need to finish our first streetscape project, which is going to impact this greatly, because if we don't do that, we are going to have to pay back federal money, which would be hard on our budget. And we know we've been kicking that can down the road, and that kind of shows the public that we haven't been really great stewards of their tax dollars, because we didn't complete a project that was so important to us, and we spent a lot of money already getting ready to go, and we just haven't completed it. So I'd like to see us finish something before we start something else. Another thing that has changed is the Tony's project. We don't know at this point with urban renewal if we're going to be able to salvage that building or if we're going to have to raise it. And so now we don't really know what's going to go in that space. And it would be nice to have a better sense of that before we start doing things around a brand new plaza. You know, we don't know. We have a splash park right now that is off. We cannot use it. I don't know, is a splash park even going to be a good idea in 18 months? I'm not saying don't do this project, but I am saying that the timing really is off. I mean, federal, state, and local budgets are turned upside down right now, and none of us knows even what else is going to happen. Like, yes, we passed a budget, but our tax revenues are down at all levels. And we have all these new expenses that we never thought of that we were going to be responsible for taking care of the public during this pandemic. So I really feel like it would be good to just take a pause on this and not spend money or staff time, which is money out of our budget, to draw up expenses, just like you wouldn't, if your home budget, if you lost your job, you wouldn't spend a lot of time and energy and paying somebody to come up with an estimate to redo your home, knowing that you got to wait until you've got your job back and you kind of know what's going on before you start a big project.
Any other comments or questions? I think you make a good point about the demolition, the possible demolition of the Tony's building. That's certainly gonna, but as far as the First Street project, I'm not, if the budget would allow it, I can't see why these projects can't be done simultaneously.
Well, because that money, that project has to be done, and we could run into a cost overrun, or I mean, all kinds of problems that we can't anticipate, but we don't have the flexibility and capacity in our budget to really absorb that right now because of tax revenues going down and additional expenses. Like, it's just too unknown for me. I would like a little more time before we start on this project. It's not, like I said, it's not to say don't do it, but I think today is not the right time to authorize spending additional money on this until we know, because maybe we want a different design as a community once we kind of realize how everything is shifting out.
Any other comments?
I don't disagree. Those are some good points.
Can the staff provide us with some sort of financial analysis of how the First Street project and this project might fit into the urban renewal budget and the city's budget?
Well, yes, Mr. Mayor. As I presented to the agency on more than one occasion, that we have remaining federal funds that have been earmarked for the First Street project. There's somewhere between about 1.3, 1.4, somewhere remaining. And we also have the remaining bond proceeds from the 2009 bond issue. Again, that's about 2 million, a little over 2 million. And those funds have been set aside for the First Street project. The agency has done really an admirable job in the last couple of budgets and minimizing expenses and keeping those funds on reserve for that First Street project. Since that project has been around for a number of years and various forms, of course, the cost of the project have escalated. So one of the things that the board has asked is an accounting of where we are with the First Street project. You know, I've had a number of conversations with our ODOT property manager, project manager, and our consultant firm over the last few months. And so, you know, we should be reporting out to the agency in September. But again, there are specific funds, federal funds earmarked for the First Street project, as well as the bond proceeds. So there's money available. You know, our current year budgets, both city and agency, have approved and set aside funds, you know, for this plaza project. You know, right when this project was started, you know, it was there was well, things were different then. Again, what we're asking for this evening is direction to continue with the project where we are. We have this minor contract with Collins Firm, and I'd like to be able to finish this up and get this to a point where there can be those discussions at the board and with the city council for this project. In regards to the Tony's building, the agency currentently has an exclusive negotiating agreement with the local development team. You know, they were part of this design process, they were invited to the design charrettes, and so they were interested in it and excited. But again, we'll see what happens to the Tony's building. You know, the Federal Street, this location was selected for a couple of different reasons. One, the agency does own the Tony's building. That is an asset of the agency. The agency has contributed substantial funds to the renovation of the Honnold building with those loft units. They've also, the agency has also contributed substantial funds to the renovation of I think it was the Gare building. So there's been a lot of work in this particular area. And then we do have the anchor of the city-owned building, which is currently being used for the Veterans Service Center. So it seemed to be a natural fit. You know, we've talked to the First Street consultants, engineers on how to integrate these two projects. And there's, you know, it's very little extra effort to integrate the two. You know, we're also in conversations with McKed, who now is a local transit operator, and they are interested in locating a bus shelter on First Street in this location as well. So again, there's a lot of activity, a lot of interest in this particular location. So it's a matter of the funding and the design, and again, having the support of both the council and the agency.
So to be specific, you're asking for authorization to proceed with the bid construction process and necessary. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mayor, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, at this particular time, you know, we're asking for direction to continue to refine the concept plans and to take this to the agency board as well for their review, and then just continue with the design process, and then come back to the board, the agency board and the city council with a more finalized concept and finalized construction cost estimates at a later date. And then at that time, there would be a decision by the city council and the agency to proceed with authorization for to go out to bid and any budget augmentations that would be necessary.
So specifically, you're asking the council to bless your recommendation to refine the concept in the plans and to take the concept to the Urban Renewal Agency?
Yes, and I've heard support from various council members on that stamped or colored concrete option.
Yes.
Yep. Yes.
I believe the city manager has something she wanted to comment on.
Thank you, Mayor Mays. I actually have a lot of questions and a couple concerns. And so I have to agree with Councilor Long Curtis and Councilor Runyon that it may be time to pause this for a little while and kind of see how things shake out. This is the concept that was presented tonight, which I like the concept and I love the location, is almost double what's been budgeted for the fiscal year to do this project. So, you know, $250,000 was budgeted between the city and urban renewal. And right now we're looking at almost $450,000, which quite honestly, that shocked me that it would cost that much to put down what we see on that picture on the screen. I had a meeting with the community development director today about this, and I know that he shared some of my concerns with the consultant this afternoon in a phone meeting, but you know, to come in, double the budget and say, you know, we want you to approve this concept and we'll take it to final design, just doesn't, it's not sitting well with me. I don't think that you can sit there and nod your heads and say, yeah, we like this. This is a great concept. Let's take it to the next level when we don't have the money in the current budget to do that, instead of maybe saying, come back and refine it, or come back and show us how we can spend what we do have budgeted and then consider the rest at a later time or something like that. This project, I haven't heard anything about electrical connections, but I have heard people commenting tonight about how wouldn't it be nice if we could have a farmer's market or a craft market or concerts or whatever, which you can't do if there are no electrical hookups. And I have a lot of concerns also about that splash pad. So if the council decides tonight you do want to move this forward, I would at the very least ask that you consider some alternatives to a $50,000 splash pad that's going to be turned on, I don't know, 2 months out of the year, where maybe the beautification and art commissions that you've created would like to see some sculpture there or some public art or something that's static, that we don't have to pay money to maintain, that we don't have to run water to. I mean, there's just an awful lot of details, in my opinion, to ask you to approve this tonight to move forward and then say, go ahead and develop it more when there's a lot of red flags on what's in front of you. Thank you.
So the red flags are the budget and the splash pad?
I have many. Those are the two big ones.
Electricity.
Councilor Runyon.
Yeah, I have some concerns about the need for this splash pad, because when I look at it, again, I brought up picnic tables and things. When I see the 1, 2, 3 areas of grass that are not associated with a tree, that's where I put those tables at with a little shade cover over the top of them, because the less ongoing maintenance we have for public works to deal with, or parks and rec, or however it's handled, so I'm not ready to go forward with additional things that are going to take ongoing maintenance without knowing more about it. And exactly on the farmer's market or whatever it is, cherry festival, and you want to have vendors in there, I guess I kind of made an assumption there'd be electrical outlets, but our city manager just brought that up. It's not part of this right now. And that's a very important thing. We don't have a lot of control over the Tony's building right now. So as nice as we'd like to incorporate that, that's kind of out of our hands for the moment. But yeah, I'm more interested in shade for the people in the summertime than I am getting the kids wet.
Councilor Miller.
This is the first that it's been brought to my attention, and it is a discussion item, and all of these are items of discussion. I didn't realize that we would be voting to go forward on the project. And I think that we do need to know and have more insight into the project. But again, for a flooring, I'm all for sand colored concrete.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's a new concept for me, because I haven't seen any of this until we got the packet. And
It's listed as a discussion item.
a discussion item, exactly.
Councilor McLaughlin.
We have a splash park already at the aquatic center, and that's utilized quite a bit through the summer months. So the need to duplicate that may not be as high, but okay.
It seems that splash pad is on the endangered species list for a variety of reasons. The cover is something I think there's consensus on that. I'd really like to see us take some kind of small step forward on this as opposed to just letting it sit. I think the downtown and the Tony's building has been mentioned. Tony's building has taken a major setback. We really need something positive downtown to happen, and the sooner the better. And I feel very strong about that. If the Tony's building sits there for another year and gathers dust and adds to the blight of downtown without anything else happening, I as the mayor would be very discouraged. I'd just like to see us take some small step forward on this project without letting it sit there for another year.
Perhaps your direction might be to ask for a concept that fits within our budget as a phase one so that it could move forward. Maybe it's the stamped concrete and the trees or something like that. I mean, it would be nice if something could be presented that could show what it could be like to begin with and then add it on later.
I don't like phased projects, but in light of what the comments that have been presented tonight, I would, I'll take it.
I'll agree with the mayor.
So
You'll take it. I'll take it.
If I could just interject, I'd like to make a few comments or notes about the costs and what's included and what's not. And I'm not sure how the initial budget got established. Our involvement came after that. I thought it was more of a placeholder. And as we started to refine this project and add more elements, then more elements you add, the cost increase. So you're right, there is a $50,000 allocation around that for the splash pad in this concept. If we were to take that out, there's about that amount of savings in the concept. We do have an allowance of close to 60,000 for utilities in this concept that is intended to cover things like water and electrical and storm drainage. We're not at the phase of design where we actually figure out where outlets go and where all the catch basins are. That would come with design refinement and part of the next cycle, but that is a consideration and something that we did think about. And then we've already talked about achieving some savings by the switching from a more expensive material to a less expensive material, which is colored stamped concrete. And my rough calculations show that we would achieve between 35,000 and 90,000 by that switch. So if we switch to regular concrete and splash pad elimination, might save the project around 140,000, which gets you to where I think your initial budget was. So I think we're caught at a point where the project needs to do more work to define the budget and to answer these questions about the red flags that city manager has and the councilor has, and to provide more detail about operations and maintenance. But I think you do need to take some steps forward with the design or the project in order to do those things. But I just did want to point out that utilities are budgeted and part of the consideration. And there are ways to achieve savings and get to your budget if is the direction of council.
If I may, Colin, thank you for saying that. I read through all of your items that you listed, and I didn't see anything in there for utilities with the exception of for the splash pad and irrigation. That's why I called that out.
Yeah,
And
no,
also,
thanks. I should do a very good job explaining that.
Right, so it just didn't show. That's why I brought it up.
Yep.
And then also, we did originally anticipate applying for a grant, which would have been through the state parks, and those grants are no longer available because there are no lottery funds, and I would expect that to be the case for quite some time. So again, our funding is limited to our own funding and probably not going to be able to get grants for this project.
Thank you.
Julie, could you summarize what you said a few minutes ago that would provide some direction moving forward that we can all buy into? I thought you summarized it pretty well.
Oh, for the council to move forward tonight, I would recommend, and Steve might want to refine this, that you ask that the plan be refined, taking out the splash pad. Let me look at my notes here. Perhaps phased construction, depending upon how the prices come out for the revised one, using the stamped concrete instead of the pavers. I think those were the top things. And then also, I guess I would just like to note too, while you're thinking about all that, that if we do stamped concrete, we're putting that in a National Historic District. So some of the photos that were provided, while they're quite beautiful, may or may not be appropriate in a historic district. We might want to tame that down a bit too.
I agree.
I agree.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So I would like to propose to the council that we put a hold on this moving forward in any fashion until spring, because there's so many unknowns and a lot of those are going to be answered over the next couple of months. And in addition, I would like to see that space where the Tony's building currently is. I would like to know more about that. And I think that's going to be coming up in urban renewal. And we might have some more clarity on that, because I would like that building to be the cornerstone of the block. And I would like whatever happens in the street, if it becomes a plaza, whatever the layout of the plaza is, I would like that to go with whatever brand new, great, big, beautiful thing we put there, rather than limiting what somebody is willing to build there because we've put a plaza that somehow doesn't go with what they were thinking. And I'm not saying no, and I'm not saying wait a year, but I am asking that we just give it a little bit of time, so at least some of these other things have a chance to work through the process before we revisit this and spend any time or money on it.
Other thoughts or comments?
I would adjust that to looking at it again in September, after some of these questions have been answered regarding a phased-in approach, et cetera, as our city manager had brought forward. So I don't disagree with you, Darcy, but I don't want to wait till spring. I think we have some things we can accomplish going forward to get ready. That'll also give us an opportunity to see if there's some other funding available. But maybe if not our first September meeting, maybe our second September meeting, giving us a couple of months here to refine what we see before us here tonight, have a better understanding of the budget implications and so forth, as well as the ongoing costs for whatever kind of maintenance needs to be involved with this project.
I agree.
I don't think you're going to have an answer about Tony's by September.
Yeah.
I agree with Councilor Runyon.
Okay, so can we ask the staff to bring this before us at the second meeting in September?
Yes.
Can we just have them bring general concepts and not spend a lot of time and money working up estimates on things that we haven't decided yet how we want it to be?
Yeah, I think that's fine. And is there any value in bringing the council the budget situation so we can see some dollar figures on how First Street and this plaza, how they interact with the total budget, general fund, and the urban renewal?
Yes.
Thank you.
In my mind, I don't know that this is an action item in September. I think it's still it's a discussion item. And I apologize, Colin, but I just, I think it's a great project to do. I'm just, as Councilwoman Miller said, we really just saw this and going through it. This is the first verbal discussion of the written word, and that always makes a difference. And great photographs and drawings and so forth here, but those more so than the ones we already had in front of us. The ones you brought tonight are what raised most of these questions. So good job on that.
No, thank you. Like most of our clients are public agencies, so I'm very used to these processes, and I totally understand the concerns you have. And we're all in a uncertain time. I mean, even in my profession, I'm wondering if should we be building parks right now, or should we be working on other public health issues? But I do think that we still need these types of spaces in our communities, and we may need them even more so after this crisis is over than we do now.
Well, and again, my compliments for the job you did. What you did present, I think, was very desirable. With the exception of the splash pad, I think it's a great concept overall, and I think all of us are pretty happy with that. So,
okay, thank you.
Did you?
I know that's a good conclusion.
Yeah. Thank you all very much.
Okay.
Is there any other business? Is there any other business to come before the council? Does anybody from the public have any comments about the Federal Street project? Okay. With that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting in 3 seconds. Nobody has anything else. 3, 2, 1. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Just sick.